Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 28th episode of PubTalk Live, the live publishing talk show airing the second and fourth Saturday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern. Excuse me. I drink a soda before this. I am your host, Sarah Nicolas. I'm a young adult author, a board member, and agent liaison for Pitch Wars, and a library event planner. You can subscribe to reminders via email by clicking the link in the description so you don't miss a show. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find a link to the Patreon near the end of the video description as well. Also, I wanted to mention my show, Queries, Qualms, and Quirks. It's a podcast that asks published authors to share their successful query letters and discuss their journey from first spark to day of publication. So you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts and also on YouTube. Hello, Ray. Thanks for joining us. All right, I'm going to introduce today's guest co-host, someone who some of you may be familiar with. Lodestar is the human embodiment of Madison Montgomery, Harley Quinn, Jenna Maroney, and a true digi-destined, and was born under the inscrutable star sign of, I forgot how to say it. I'll have him say it when he gets on. Professionally, he is known as Danny, who works as a professional school counselor and holds a lifelong dedication to media literacy, intersectional advocacy, and making life as fun as can be. He was the first person to become a certified geek therapist. Outside of his mental health work, he's passionate about dance, color guard, winter guard, baton twirling, and being part of the adoption community. He's also the host of the Shape of a Star podcast, which you can find more information about at theshapeofastarpodcast.com. It's also in the description. So please welcome Danny. Hello.
Hello. It's Ophiuchus, by the way.
Thank you. I was like, you just told me how to say this, and I can't remember.
Yep, it's Ophiuchus. I don't know if it's right. It's just how I heard it, and no one's corrected me.
It's the 13th sign, right?
Yeah, it's the one that people really write off. They say, "Oh no, but on my sign." But if you actually look up the traits of all the signs when they shifted and added it in, it actually kept your traits with your day. So I lost some of the stuff. I only lost clumsiness and outdoorsiness from Sagittarius. And then I got the bitter and spiteful part of Scorpio. And I was like, perfect.
Oh my gosh. But then Susan Miller doesn't do a horoscope for that. Do you know Susan Miller?
I know of. I don't know exactly. I never know what she does in the world.
Miller. Yeah. She writes horoscopes.
And see, that's the other thing too. I don't mind being an original thing because I'm more special than. I will never tell you what to identify as, so you can identify as whatever sign you want. But I'm an Ophiuchus.
Yeah, I'm pretty hardcore Libra, so.
I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real. All right. So if you haven't yet voted in today's viewer poll, you should go and do that. It was from Danny today, and it was basically how did you or would you pick a pen name if you needed one? And so, yeah, go check that too. Oh, nice, Ray.
Hi, Ray.
All right, it's going to be Libra season soon, so everyone get ready. All right, so we're going to do, if you're new to the show, we do news items, and then we interview our special guest. So we'll get to our special guest in a bit, but we're going to start with the past 2 weeks of publishing news. So I'm in some Facebook groups for booksellers, and they started talking this week about a $5 increase on the Amanda Gorman's upcoming poetry collection. And the book also doubled in size. It went from 120 pages to 240 pages, which explains the price increase. Yes. But the problem is the booksellers have been taking pre-orders since July at the lower price. And also, I guess I should add that the publisher was pushing them to take pre-orders too, to take advantage of, the moment. And the booksellers hadn't been communicated with that, what would happen with their pre-orders. Would they have to eat the $5 per book cost, that kind of thing. So after a couple of days of outcry, Penguin Random House did say that they would honor the lower pre-order price on orders placed before the 25th, which is when the price officially changed.
That's a few days ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was everyone was really upset for a hot minute. And it looks like they're hopefully going to do right by the publishers. And everyone's going to get twice as much Amanda Gorman as they thought.
Woo! Victory for the people.
For just $5 more.
All right. Next up on the news, Hatchet, which I hope it's said right, is like Hatchet book publishing has been acquired. Or no, okay, they acquired, right?
I was like, wait, what? No.
Okay, so Hatchet Book Group and Workman Publishing announced that they've entered into a bidding commitment for Hatchet to acquire Workman. That's it.
Yeah, which is just furthering the consolidation of publishing houses, which is a constant worry for anyone paying attention to publishing these days. So that's fun. Eventually, it's just going to be one big publisher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a couple indies holding on, maybe. All right. So the Beijing Book Fair announced that it was postponing the event on Tuesday, which was the day before it was set to start. Due to COVID concerns, a new date will be announced later. But obviously that's not ideal, closing a large book fair the day before.
Yeah, a con did a very similar thing, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was the night before. People were already in the hotel and everything.
Oh, my gosh.
And guests were canceling left and right. They're like, guys, we don't have enough. Like, you're honored for next year. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of cons are having that issue where a lot of people are canceling. A lot of guests are canceling. BoucherCon, I remember when it was canceled, I saw so many announcements of authors being like, sorry, I can't do it. Because it was in New Orleans, of all places.
Oh.
And which is just like a huge COVID hotspot right now. And yeah, so they canceled it. It was a couple of weeks out though, so people could make plans at least a day before. I would be so mad. I would already be there, you know? Like,
exactly. I would already be there with my friends. Yeah. And then although if it's in New Orleans, I would do the American Story Coven tour. The unofficial one. It's not officialized, but like it's $10 to go. They'll take you to all the sites they filmed at. And yes, I'm so excited to go one day because people dress up.
Cool.
But back to the news. Yeah. Employees at 2 locations of Greenlight bookstores and a stationery store they own have voted to join the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. And the owners have chosen to voluntarily recognize the union.
Yeah, this is a good time to mention that all the news items that we talk about, I post the links in the description afterwards. So if you want to read more about any of them, you can go and do that after the show ends. But one important thing that I learned from this article, Danny, was that the employees at the Strand bookstore have been unionized since the 70s, and they are in the auto workers union.
Okay.
How? I don't understand how that works.
The automotive industry and just like as a whole is really getting into like various things. Like I recently found a band competition that is not hosted by the band of the high school. It's hosted by the automotive club. What? Yes. So
man, they just got their fingers everywhere. Who knew the auto workers were supporters of the arts?
not Greece, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
This was also my question when I read that. I was like, "What is this wrong?" No, I don't know. All right. Anyway, so last week a whole bunch of articles came out saying that Amazon plans to open department stores starting in Ohio and California. Department stores. Did I say department stores? Anyway,
I thought you did.
The department stores. The stores are expected to be about 30,000 square feet. So that is about the third of a size of like a normal department store, but it is much bigger than their other stores that they had opened in New York. And they will sell clothing, home goods, electronics, and other items. Amazon declined to comment on the news, but all the articles are very specific.
That is a very specific specifications they've announced. Yeah. And oddly enough, I was in Walmart today, and Walmart's advertising this new Walmart Plus account you can buy for free deliveries. And my mom was like, wait, are they competing against Amazon now? Well, apparently, maybe this is why.
Yeah, yeah. If anyone has not read The Warehouse by Rob Hart, I need everyone to go read it right now.
What's it about? Pitch it a little.
Okay, so it is an economic dystopian in a future where a company that is very much like Amazon, but is not, is the sole driver of the economy. So the company is the economy. So everyone who works for them. Everyone who purchases goods from them. Everyone who creates goods, like invents things, eventually gets not even bought out. They just kind of like copy them and they can't do anything about it. And yeah, so the hero is a strong word. The main character um, gets a job with them in the warehouse and actually becomes a security agent. And he had invented something that started selling well, and so he started selling it on the site, much like people can sell things on Amazon. And then Amazon basically created their own and then underbid him until his company went out of business. And so he starts out wanting to get revenge and does not, spoiler, but yeah, it's a dark economic dystopian.
I was about to say, like, once you said the internet and Amazon around, I was like, oh, this isn't 1984 time period.
Yeah, no, it's future.
Like The Giver.
And every time there's like a new announcement about Amazon, I'm like, oh, that happened in the warehouse.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Next up is me. One of the officers involved in the shooting of Breonna Taylor has returned his book advance and is looking for a new publisher. Simon & Schuster said they wouldn't distribute the book in April, and the publisher, Post Hill Press, said that they had no other way of distributing the book.
Yep. So he's looking for another publisher.
Does he have an agent?
The article didn't say. That's interesting. It said he was looking at other options, so I'm guessing not. Yeah, so we have a couple of politically related things. So relatedly, the House of Representatives, if you don't know, has a ban on receiving book advances. So White House doctor turned congressman Ronnie Jackson, Republican from Texas, signed a book deal for an unnamed book with a $50,000 advance in December, just before he was sworn in, but after he was elected. His publisher is also Post Hill Press. I'm just saying that timing is shady, and the fact that they don't even say what the book is about is shady.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yep. So I have another political news before we move on. Another shady politician book deal news. Forbes released an article last week and demonstrating that Ted Cruz received a $320,000 advance in 2020, and his campaign spent over $150,000 purchasing his books. His campaign site sells autographed copies of the book in exchange for donations over $77. His campaign also paid for $5,000 worth of Facebook ads to promote the book.
That's not that much money, actually, for Facebook ads.
Yeah, but the campaign shouldn't be boosting ads.
No, that's right. But I was just thinking, I was like, wait, 5,000 isn't a lot. I know a lot of people that use Facebook ads a lot, and they spend like $8,000 a month.
Yeah, they
so
do.
But shady still.
Yeah, there's just so much like cross dealing, and I don't know. It's just
But at least we have freedom of the press and can report it here, even though we're not really a news show. But hey, we're safe. And last on the news is the Vatican has selected their new head Vatican. They named an Italian journalist as head of the Vatican publishing house. Ugh, that was so botched. But yeah, I didn't even know that the Vatican had a publishing house.
I didn't either, but it makes sense.
It does. It's Italian journalist Lorenzo Fazzini, and he's a 43-year-old guy, and he wants to help talk about modern religion in a quote, and just like how it's an open discussion and not super closed like the Latin masses,
I was
people
gonna
would
say,
have you say.
how many languages do they publish in?
That's a great point. I have no clue.
They probably publish in a lot of languages. That would be interesting.
And yet we
to
didn't know
work
they
in.
existed.
I know. Well, I'm also not Catholic, so that probably has something to do with it. All right. That is the news for this past 2 weeks. Well, all the news fit to print. No, I'm kidding. That's New York Times. Don't sue me. All right. So we're going to bring on our special guest today. Living only a block away from the library, turned Sarah Simpson-Weiss into a voracious reader at a very young age. But it was being a library aide in middle and high school that set her on a path into the wonderful world of literature early on her life. She served as the children's and teens librarian for her hometown library in Iowa until taking a job with Rachel Kane. She's now a virtual assistant specializing in helping authors with their day-to-day needs so that they can focus on what is most important, writing. Danny.
What?
Writing is most important.
Oh. Shady.
Sarah is a self-proclaimed chaos wrangler, bookaholic, and fan of all things Star Wars. So please welcome Sarah to the show. Hello.
Hi.
You're muted, hon. There we go.
Okay. Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Sorry I had to use your bio to call out Danny, but we shame him around these parts.
It's usually about reading, not writing.
Yeah, that's true.
No worries.
All right. Sarah, can you start with kind of like a rundown of all the different kinds of services that you do for your clients?
It really kind of varies from author to author. I have a couple that I mostly just keep their inboxes cleared, keep the most important ones, the things that are still ongoing where they can find it, update websites and run their social media, newsletters, things like that. And then I have other clients who need more of an administrative assistant. And I do all of their calendars, itineraries for travel plans. Just whatever they need. My favorite part is getting to read the first drafts of books. With a lot of my authors, I get to read the first draft and the last draft. I read the first one and they usually ask my opinion. So I feel really honored about that. And then I do the last pass because I'm the one that gets that email from that reader that's like, did you mean to say here H-E-R-E? I mean, I think it should have been here H-E-A-R. I will get that email. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to find that typo so that they can email me.
Okay, so I actually have a question about that then.
Okay.
So I was in 7th grade and I was reading like the Warrior Cats books, and they misspelled Stormfur. They forgot the O in Stormfur. Yeah. And my teacher was very encouraging, like, hey, you should email or write a letter to the publishers. Let's send you a fruit basket or a muffin basket.
No, we really do. I mean, the publishers get them, the agents get them, the authors get them. We appreciate like the first one, especially when we don't know that it's there. But it never fails, especially in YA and middle grade. We will have about 100 kids email about the same typo. And it became a running joke that like I responded to more typo emails than anything like in the first year of being Rachel's assistant. And so it kind of became my mission to find the typos and eliminate them before print. So...
But will I get the muffin basket?
That I can't guarantee. If it comes from the publisher, possibly.
Ooh.
Fruit basket. That's funny. I've never heard that before. So some of your clients are self-published, some of them are traditionally published, right?
Actually, all of mine are traditionally published. Alethea does do some self-publishing, but otherwise all of mine are traditionally published.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about self-publishing. I'm actually learning because I have an author that I'm going to help self-publish some things. So that's kind of a new area that I'm kind of adding to my wheelhouse currently. But for the last 12 years, I've worked primarily in traditional publishing and primarily in the YA genre. It's only been over about the last 5 years that I've really started working in both middle grade and adult.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of people don't know this because I don't talk about it a lot, but I was also an author's assistant for a while, but I primarily worked with self-published authors.
Okay.
Because I had self-published and I had worked in a couple different fields in publishing, and so I had a lot of the skills that they needed. And it's cheaper to pay someone by the hour than pay like all the different
Absolutely.
people.
Nobody realizes how much work goes into self-publishing. I mean, it's a lot. And I look at authors like Yasmin Gailnorn who publish at least one book a month, and I'm like, how do you do all this? Yeah. And then I remember that she has like 2 or 3 assistants.
Yeah. So I have a question that I don't see on the list that I kind of want to interject here because it matches. So how does someone get an author assistant? Like, is it through like agent and like publishers, or are you like freelance and I could find you online and be like, hey, you want to work together?
I'm freelance. There are a lot of authors that are, but a lot of my clients have come to me because of people that I've worked with, either their agent, their publicist, their editor, who they mentioned that, you know, they were needing somebody and they're like, oh, I know this girl. And then they call me and it's awesome. Like that's how I got my Star Wars author, Claudia Gray. Rachel actually recommended me for that job. And I hit it off really well with her publicist, Cassie, and Cassie actually recommended me for my 2 Rick Riordan authors that I have. Wow. So a lot of it is kind of word of mouth, but I do have a website that's slightly neglected. It's mostly update, but I don't use it very often. And I've had the same pretty much 7-8 clients for the last 5+ years. So I haven't really been taking on anybody new. It has to really be a special case, somebody that I really, really want to work with, or a project that really excites me for me to take on any new clients right now, because I am just so busy that if I'm going to add more work, I have to really want to do it.
I know we hooked up at Dragon Con one time, and you were helping Alethea with her thing that she does there, and you had like all these boxes of like tote bags and giveaways and stuff like that. So sometimes the work is very physical too.
It is, but it's a lot of fun. Like we do Princess Alethea's Traveling Sideshow at Dragon Con every year. Not this year, sadly, thanks COVID. But otherwise, normally every year, and we do 50 swag bags for the first 50 people that come in. And it's my job to contact publishers and publicists and get stuff for the swag bag donated. And then I specifically stay in the Marriott, and the very nice bellhops help me bring it all down for a hefty tip, so I don't have to carry all of it myself. But yeah, when I'm at Dragon Con, actually, the year that you saw me, I had 3 authors that were at Dragon Con that year. And so it varies. Some years I'm there with only Alethea. Some years I can have at least 3 at Dragon Con, and then I always have at least 2 at Decatur Book Festival the same weekend. So I spend a lot of time in a lift going back and forth between Decatur and the Marriott, the Hyatt, the Hilton.
Yeah. All right. Jen has joined us, and she said that the Traveling Sideshow is one of her favorite Dragon Con events every year. We sad to miss it this year.
I'm really sad we're missing it too, but unfortunately it's just still in that weird place in the pandemic where we're ready to get back to in-person stuff, but are we ready to get back to in-person stuff?
Yeah, Florida is like setting new records for deaths. So
Yep, and that's where Alethea is from. So she would basically have to drive through all of that just to get to Atlanta, which has very high COVID numbers right now also.
Yeah.
So
all right. So we've talked about kind of some of the different things that you've done for your clients. And I was curious, what is kind of the most interesting or weird or, just different tasks that you've had to do for a client? Anything that's like kind of stands out to you?
several. Rachel Kane did an event. When she goes overseas for events, she usually does like a whole month of events to make it worth going over there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had done, I want to say England, France, Ireland, and Scotland, and then had to head to Sweden. And she got to the airport in Sweden very, very early in the morning here in the States. I don't know what time it was there. And the entire airport was just empty. Like, she did not see any other people.
Like Langoliers kind of situation?
Yeah, there was like nobody. Like, she was definitely freaked out. She called me. She's like, there is no one here. It's like a very small airport. Everybody got off the flight. They all went their ways, and now there's nobody. I'm like, okay. She said, well, the car service for the event that she was doing was supposed to be picking her up, and she had gone down to the baggage claim, got her stuff, and was waiting, and they never showed up. And so her and I are on the phone. She's like, can you figure out where they are? And I'm trying to use Google Translate, and I'm trying to read Swedish to explain to somebody where my author was so they could find her. And it turns out that even though the airport is very small, it's like a weird shape, and she was on the wrong end. That end was closed. And so that was kind of stressing. I've also had to improv check. When Claudia was doing a Czech book festival over in Prague, she was in her room and the air conditioner broke, and for some reason she had no cell service, couldn't get through to the front desk on the regular phone, like was just kind of sitting there. She's like, I don't know what's going on, but nobody's answering the phone. It's really, really hot. I have no cell signal. She's like sending me emails from her computer. I'm like, just give me a second. Let me see if I can call them on, their regular number. And then I had to improvise check, to explain to them what was going on. And yeah, thankfully somebody finally went, hold please. And then an English speaker got on, and I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm sure I am just massacring your language, because I don't speak any foreign languages.
You're just like looking up Czech words on Google.
Yeah, pretty well. I type in what I want to say on Google Translate, and then I attempt to read it. And some of those languages, they don't sound like how they look.
No.
Not at all. And so I mangled everything I said, and finally somebody took pity on me and handed me over to some poor English speaker after they had a very good laugh. Yeah. So I made somebody's day, and I managed to get my authors taken care of. So I called it a win.
So you made more than one people day.
I hope so. That's usually my goal in a day, is to make as many people happy as I can. So
yeah, that's a huge American privilege, is almost anywhere we go there's going to be someone who speaks English.
Yeah.
We're really spoiled though.
Yeah.
I agree. It's nice having the Google Translate on your phone though now. Like, it can but it doesn't help for phone calls because it can't talk through the phone for you. Yeah. So I need that feature.
What time of day you were trying to do all this at? Because there's time zones in play now.
Yeah. The one with Rachel, I know it was very early morning here, so I assume it was Sweden is about 7 hours, 8 hours different from us. So I believe it was closer to evening for her. Claudia, it was the middle of the night there, so it was like late afternoon for us.
Okay, because I was just imagining it was like 4 a.m. You're waking up trying to translate Swedish to Google Translate and talking and half asleep.
I have done those also. I've had to get up in the middle of the night because one of my authors was flying out at 5 a.m. Eastern time, and there was a flight delay. I mean, I work 24 hours a day whenever my authors need me. If I can catch a cat nap here and there, if I know I have something coming up. Like today, I knew I had this tonight, and my husband wanted to work in the yard and tear down a tree. So I made sure to schedule myself a little 2 hours where I could just lay down and close my eyes so that I would be coherent for you guys tonight. So a lot of my job is just scheduling and, making sure I allow myself enough time to handle everything that needs to be handled when it needs to be handled.
Wow. All right. Danny has a very important cultural question for you.
Okay, so when I heard what you do, I was like, oh my God. Okay, so in The Devil Wears Prada, Andy gets the unpublished manuscript of the Harry Potter novel for like Miranda Priestley's kids to read. As someone who works in the industry and was actually the leak in the scenario, it was like someone's assistant had it. How much of reaction does that generate within you in your being that if that could happen to you?
Well, first of all, I get a lot of manuscripts that are nowhere near being published. Some of them are debut authors, and some of them are names that I am not even allowed to say that I've read their manuscript. That's really hard. Like, I've never come across, like, most everybody I know that's in my position, we hoard that stuff like gold. I mean, you won't even see on Twitter where sometimes I won't even tell you what I'm reading. I'm just reacting like, oh my God, I read this book. And everybody's like, what book? And I'm like, I can't tell you. I'm sorry. I cannot say anymore. Please don't ask me. And so learning how to keep secrets, which is not my strong suit. Thank God for NDAs. There's no possible way I could spill a secret. It's awesome. I'm like, but
uh-oh, did she freeze?
No. Yeah. But it was a dramatic noise, though.
I know. I'll wait a minute and see if she comes back. Yeah, when I saw your question, Danny, I was like, thinking back on it, what's her name? Miranda, right? Is the editor?
Yeah.
I was like, why didn't she just reach out to one of her powerful friends? Surely they had like some sort of access.
Well, then again, it was the whole test to prove if Andy was like after the failure of not getting the National Guard, which is something I was going to say when Sarah was talking about, like, I had to pull miracles. I was like, oh my God, did you call the National Guard to like fly someone out? I was like, no, that'll spoil the reference here. But
I'm going to check my email to make sure, see if she emailed me.
Well, while that happens, hi people. Hi pubbers.
It looks like she left, so hopefully she'll be coming back.
So also, I've never been to Dragon Con. Is there really this much writing stuff happening at Dragon Con?
Yeah, well, there's like a writing track, and then there's Sarah's back. There are a whole bunch of authors. Hello.
Sorry, guys, my computer crashed and I had to switch to my phone real quick. I thought it died, so I started screaming for my husband to bring me the charger up. And it's not dead. It just, for some reason, shut off and will not turn back on.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no.
Now I'm on my phone. Sorry.
All right, you're good. We were just talking about Dragon Con, and Danny didn't realize that there was so much author stuff going on at Dragon Con.
Oh, they have an amazing, amazing array of authors that come. This year, I'm excited to see Charlene Harris. She's somebody I've known since I started in this industry, so it's always great to see her. And I'm a huge Patricia Briggs fan.
Yeah, she comes.
Yeah, I've met Patty so many times, but I have not seen her in probably 5 years now. So I'm really excited to get to see her. Uh, their urban fantasy track is one of my
Yeah.
favorite tracks.
That's where I spend most of my time when I go there. As an author and also just as an attendee, I've been on several urban fantasy. So they'll have like the urban fantasy track, for example, Danny and anyone else who's interested, they'll have panels related to the shows. So they'll have like, you know, with the actors or whatever in the big rooms, but then in the smaller room, they have fan panels. So I've been on like a Winona Earp fan panel. I've been on what else? I've been on several fan panels, and then they'll also have author panels, so authors who write urban fantasy. So it's just kind of like all media. And then they have a whole writer track where they do like writing workshops, whereas the other ones are more like, you know, for readers rather than writers.
This is
And you wouldn't
fascinating.
think that the book signings would be as big as they are. You know, you would think the celebrities are the draw, but a lot of these authors, I mean, I've seen Sherilyn Kenyon and Jim Butcher have lines just down the hall, round the corner, down the hall again. I mean,
yeah. Anytime there's like a big name author on one of the panels, they need a bigger room sometimes.
Yeah, because everyone I know that goes to the Dragon Con is like cosplayers, because it's one of like the big like tech of the cosplays. Like Katsucon's kind of like where the quote show-worthy cosplays go, but Dragon Con's where you show your technology in your cosplay, is the rumors I've been told. So I always thought it was just like another cosplayer thing, but now that I know it's writing, someone might take a flight.
You can do both.
Year.
You can do both, Danny.
Cosplaying is top notch at Dragon Con. Top notch. It is some of my favorite, and I mean, you can pick a spot, you know, in a hotel lobby, pretty much anywhere, and just watch them go by. And some of these people work from the moment the last Dragon Con gets over to the next one on their costumes, and it shows. I mean,
I often just at night just like lean up against a wall for like an hour and just watch people go by.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get back to our questions. Let's see. Sarah, what is kind of the biggest thing that you feel like people misunderstand about what you do? Like if someone talks to you, are there any like common misunderstandings or misrepresentations?
Not really with what I do. I have a problem at home. They did an interview with me, my first ever interview a few years ago for the local paper, because the lady working there thought it was really interesting. You know, she was a big YA book lover too. Read most of my authors. And so I agreed to do the interview. And for about a month after it was published, every house mom in our town would say, "Oh, I read that article. That's very interesting. You should hook me up with some authors because I could do that." And yeah, nothing kind of makes you feel great like everybody and their brother saying, "Oh, I could do your job."
Yeah.
With absolutely no idea what exactly it is that I even do. I mean, I think a lot of them just think I sit here and read books, and I do so much more than that in a day. It's really disheartening to have people say that, and unfortunately, it's something that gets said to me a lot when I'm home.
Oh yeah. Well, you're in good company though, because authors get told all the time, like, "Oh, I could write books if I had some time." Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's kind of par for the course in our profession that everybody kind of thinks that they have what it takes, when, you know, I welcome them to try. Absolutely. If anybody wants to come and do my job for a day and I will just lay in the bubble bath with a book, like, I will be glad to watch you run around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Is this you opening applications for an intern?
There are days where I need one. There are absolutely days when I need one. I've had times when I had two authors release a book on the same day.
Mm.
And so I'm doing double duty, getting through release week. And yeah, my husband is really good at looking at me at 5 o'clock and saying, "Have you eaten any food today?" And I'm like, "No, I forgot lunch." And it's only like noon. And he's like, "No, it's 5. I'm home from work now." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry."
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of that, if someone is seriously wanting to become an author's assistant, do you have any tips or advice for them?
My biggest advice for another assistant is just be very, very tedious. Double check everything, cross your T's and dot your I's. The entire purpose of an author assistant is to make the author's life easier, to clear the things out of the way so that they can focus on writing the book, so they can focus on revisions, whatever it is they need to focus on, getting ready to go, do a live event. Uh, they don't need to be stressed out by the little things. And if you accidentally put one wrong number in their confirmation, they can't check into their plane, and it just causes them undue stress. So just be very, very anal retentive, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
make sure you have all your ducks in a row, because they're relying on you to have your ducks in a row.
Yeah, definitely. As someone who had to do 3 hours of extra work this week because an author misspelled their own name, yes.
Yeah. And deadline brain is a thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a thing. People see authors talk about it and they're like, "Oh, they're making excuses again for why they're not writing or why they're not doing that." No, literally, they've lived in another galaxy, in another plane of existence for the last 3 months, writing that book, revising that book. I mean, and you want to ask them what day it is? No, they're not going to get that right. We're lucky if they're in the same year as us sometimes, I love Claudia, but there are days when, she's in her Star Wars book. We are light years away, and trying to bring her back down to earth and be like, "Okay, we have to do an interview." One of the things that works for us is I kind of count her down, and I text her at 2, I text her at 1, and it's just kind of that helps you reset your brain and pull out of the world you're currently living in and back into ours. And it's astounding. I would love to live for a day in my author's brains. Like, I think they're just fascinating, and I would love to just walk through those stories. So I can't imagine having to turn that off at a moment's notice and all of a sudden be on for an interview or be on for an event or switch modes into publicity mode even. I mean, when you're in that creative zone, pulling out of that is hard.
Jennifer asked, how do you prioritize what you do throughout your day? Do you kind of do all social media at once and then all marketing, or do you do per client? How do you manage your time?
I manage my time with To Do. I have an app called To Do. It took over Wunderlist. Wunderlist was like my Bible. If it wasn't in Wunderlist, it wasn't getting done. It's how I keep track of the priorities. Like if we have something that particularly has to be turned in this week, that's at the top of the priority list, making sure that her schedule is cleared so she can get to that, get that off our plate. Otherwise, I mean, I just kind of have, I don't know, I just kind of get up every morning, and you know how when you have multiple Google emails, like there's a list?
Yep.
I go down the list and I start in the first one and I check their emails, and if there's something to be handled there, I handle it and I go on to the next one till I'm at the bottom. And then I kind of go through, I have a daily list of chores and tasks that I kind of go through, and I start that after I check any new stuff that came in. And if there's any priority stuff, I usually have an alarm that's the first thing I do for the day before I start the list of emails. So it just it varies day to day. I don't ever have a day that looks exactly like yesterday.
All right. Danny has another very important cultural question for you.
Okay, so I'm known as the person that like finds out all the people's like personal interests and lives. So, what is your favorite Hallmark movie or show?
Okay, so I'm a huge Hallmark Christmas fan. Like insane.
Me
Absolutely
too.
insane. But that answer would have been totally different if it would have been before this past Christmas. But right now, my current favorite Christmas Hallmark movie is The Christmas House. It is the first Hallmark movie to feature an LGBTQ couple. I also liked the one Wedding Every Weekend that had the first lesbian kiss. I've been a Hallmark girl my entire life, but I never thought I would see that kind of representation on Hallmark. I'm pan. My daughter is lesbian. My youngest is non-binary. So to see ourselves on the Hallmark Channel was, oh my god, I cried. Like I cried. I'm not gonna lie. I never thought I would get to that day. And so Alethea and I actually live tweeted all of the Christmas house. And we started having the actors chime in, and like the mom was retweeting everything that we were tweeting, and we're like freaking out. And yeah, that's currently my favorite Hallmark movie right now.
Nice. Yeah, I just finished Winona Earp, and like similar. I don't know if anyone knows how it ends, but I just like sobbed my way through the last 2 episodes.
See, I need to watch the last season. I was current until this past season, and then I decided instead of trying to catch them on TV, I was going to wait for it to come on Netflix so I could
that's what I
binge
did.
the whole season because I need to know. But I've been prepping for Dragon Con, and it just came out like this week on Netflix, and I have not had time. And so during my staycation at Dragon Con next week, I'm gonna watch it.
It'll be a good time for it. Yeah. I also have to ask, have you been to the Hallmark Con that they do?
I have
Christmas
not.
Con?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Raquel Henry, who's been on the show before, who lives near me, she's a huge Hallmark fan as well, and she went to the Hallmark Con, Christmas Con, and I'm like, that just seems like such a joyful place,
right? I agree.
Right.
It's a bucket list thing I want to do, but I have never been.
Mm-hmm.
They also sponsor 90s Con.
Oh,
really?
yeah.
Which makes sense why Lacey Chabert was at both now.
Yeah.
True. She's a big Hallmark girl.
All right, Sarah, last question for you is the question I ask every guest on the show. What is the most important book you've read and why?
That's a really hard question. Does anybody ever just say no? I'm not going to answer that because that's really hard.
No.
I have 3. Funny enough, that they are completely equally important for different reasons. So I fell in love with a book called The Witches of Hopper Street by Linda Gondash when I was in elementary school. And that is the book that made me a reader. I read that book religiously once a month through all of elementary school. And I actually went back to my elementary school when my oldest daughter started and looked, and it was still in the library. And my childhood librarian still worked there. And I was like, hey, can I check this out? And she looked into they still have the card thing inside that you stamp.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, nobody has checked out this book since you in 1987.
And they haven't weeded it?
How about I just give it to you? And I was like,
Wow.
would you really? And so I have that downstairs. I literally have my childhood copy of The Witches of Hopper Street. And then after high school, I lost my love of reading for a while. And then I discovered Charles DeLint's The Blue Girl. And it won like a world Sci-Fi Fantasy Award. And that was the book that brought me back to reading. And made me realize I really just want to read books for the rest of my life. Like that's what I want to do for a living. And I ended up getting the job at my local library as a children and teens librarian. Uh, and I got sick with the flu. My husband and I were sick for 2 weeks. We had read everything that was in our house. And my poor library director did not want to run any books to my house because she didn't want to catch anything. And she honestly had been stuffing books in my mailbox like all week and just could not bring me anymore. And so I pirated a book series. One of the only times I have ever pirated a book series. It was the first 5 books in the series, and that was The Morganville Vampires by Rachel Kane. And I fell in love with Morganville. And it made me reach out to her to see if she would want to do a signing at my local library. And I didn't actually expect her to respond, and she did, and was like, I can't really come to another state for one library, but maybe if some other places in your area were interested. And so I set up a book tour of Iowa for her. We did 6 different libraries and schools, and traveled together for about a week and really hit it off. And that's how I became her assistant.
Oh, wow.
And all of that kind of snowballed into now I have 8 New York Times bestselling authors that I work with. I work with Lucasfilms. I work with Disney. Childhood me would just be over the moon to know all this. As my bio says, all things Star Wars. My wedding was Star Wars. My life is Star Wars. And so the fact that I get to work with Lucasfilms, I get to go to Star Wars Celebration. It's been a dream come true, and I couldn't have done any of it without those 3 books.
Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was up for an award. It was just like one of those blog awards, there were so many back then, especially bloggers would run awards, right? And I was up against Rachel Kane for best zombie book.
Oh, nice. Against the Revivalist series?
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm not winning this. And I actually won. And I was like, no.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with us. Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
It has.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Sarah. We're going to say goodbye and finish up the show, and we'll see you later. All right. That was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, I learned so much. Although I will say, I think she might have been the first person to have an answer, ready to go.
All right. It is time for audiobook of the week. So I have one, and Danny has a book of the week. So mine is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley, narrated by Isabella Starr LeBlanc. And it is about an 18-year-old Ojibwe girl who witnesses the murder of her friend and becomes embroiled in an FBI undercover investigation to figure out who is trying to destroy her community. And so Angeline Boulley was actually on my podcast a while back, and I had not read her book yet. And so I requested it from the library, and I listened to it, and it was super fun. I think a lot of people think because of this cover that it is fantasy, and it's not. It's contemporary. And that was the audiobook of the week, the last episode too, Inheritance Games. A lot of people thought the book was fantasy because of the cover as well. So 2 audiobooks of the week in a row now are contemporaries that people thought are fantasy because of the covers, which is a weird theme. But but yeah, it was really fun, and the narration was really good. And there's some quite serious themes in it as well. So it was a good read. All right. And Danny's book
is Gods and Monsters by Shelby Marin. I hope I said your name right. But so this is the spellbinding conclusion to the New York Times and IndieBound best-selling trilogy, Serpent and Dove, which is basically a French take on witches, and she falls in love with the witch hunter, and everything galore. It's all the things that I loved reading growing up. So I would say people that opposites attract, Twilight people, all my Twihards out there with me. Like, here we go.
Yeah, well, Jennifer's here, and Jennifer is one of the biggest Twihards I know. So,
Maharin.
oh,
Thank
okay,
you, Laura.
nice, Laura. All right, cool. So those are your books of the week, and now we're going to discuss the viewer poll. So the question was, how did you decide on a pen name, or how would you choose a pen name? So let's see. I'm going to switch to my other window so I can see that a little bit better. We have 44% of people said they chose names similar to theirs. So this could be like mine, Sarah Nicolas is, my middle name is Nicole. So that's where Nicholas comes from. So, or people who use their maiden name instead of their married name, stuff like that. 15% chose or would choose one with cultural significance. And 31% said they chose it kind of randomly or they just liked the name. And then we have 9% who said other. A lot of those others were actually people who said maiden name, though.
Yeah.
But it's really hard you only have like 25 characters for these polls, so it's really hard to get it in.
Yeah.
So we said, I made up something with the first letter of the first name, same as my own, so I had time to space when signing, which I think is amazing. That's a really good idea because like you're so used to signing, that big first letter, and so you get a second to like adjust. Maiden name, a nickname. Some people talked about they were using grandmother's names. Rachel Hartman, who's been on the show before, and is one of my favorite authors. Shout out. Let's see, a play on my IRL internet identity. My first and middle initials and my dad's middle name. I'd pick one significant to me that also sounded good with my genre, which is what I did for my romance author pen name. It's Aria Kane. And basically at the time they were saying that romance names had a what was it? It was like a romantic sounding first name and a strong Anglo-Saxon last name were picked up more than other authors. And so that was kind of my template. I'd always loved the name Aria, so I chose that. And then my favorite name ever is Kian, which we talked about, I think, on your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew Kian would be misspelled and mispronounced all the time, so I chose Kane, which is like a version of it. I love this one. I picked the pen name because my IRL name is Amanda Hunt, and if I were writing romance novels, I might use it because it sounds like a man to hunt. Yeah, that's funny. An online creative handle. Let's see. First name and grandma's maiden name. A lot of people using grandparents' names. First and middle name. Hyphenated maiden surnames. Maiden name. Yeah. So cool. Thank you for sharing, everyone. And Danny has been trying to choose a pen name for as long as I've known him.
Years.
So hopefully that will help.
It's ongoing. It's forever. And it's not a moment, but life. But I think I chose a last name finally. But now I'm thinking the first part.
All right. We can talk about that later. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Danny, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to say goodbye to you so I can do the closing. And thank you, Danny, for jumping in and being so willing to co-host.
Oh, anytime. Hi, pubbers.
Right.
Bye.
All right, bye, Danny. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching, whether you're watching live or watching the replay or listening on the podcast. Appreciate you, however you're here. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and tell your friends because that's how they find out about things like this. You can also subscribe via email, via the link in the description, as well as the Patreon in the link in the description. The social media and website info for our guests is also in the description. So check that out, and you can find the link to Danny's podcast as well as Sarah's website for her author assistant work. Let's see, what do we have coming up? We have Wednesday write-ins are continuing every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Come and join us and get some work done. Corey's Qualms and Quirks is posted every Thursday. It's a podcast, but it's also available on YouTube. And I think that's it for now. And thank you, everyone. Everyone stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.